to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shaft.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred.
Welcome to episode 496 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, May 8th, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Rend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, SSJ5 Goku, and NY Kiwi. And by our patrons of the week, Hearth Battle and Templart201. Not sure if that's right. Best I got. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. Yeah, who wants to go first?
Well, I made a mistake.
Oh?
I was missing playing Control. So I started playing the Death Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And as happens when you switch to a deck like that, I'm not even going to say that because there's already conspiracy theories about the matchmaking system that it puts you against horrible decks, and I don't even want to feed into that. But just because this is my luck, I queued into 2 mirrors in a row, and then I deleted the deck. Because I am someone who has been known to be deranged enough to enjoy a control mirror, but there's even this is too much for me. And I think it's really Kil'jaeden. I think it's Kil'jaeden that ironically enough killed it for me. Because it's back to the Renathal days of like, we're never going to hit fatigue and we're going to have a million cards and it's going to go forever, whether you like it or not. And you can't not run that card because even though it's probably bad in like 90% of the matchups, because if you don't have that card in your deck, then you just lose the mirror every time and you may as well just concede it. But also nobody wins. Like nobody wins. It's you at best you get to spend 25 minutes playing demons and just waiting for the sweet release of death or something. I don't know. But it's just like what I used to enjoy about control mirrors was just kind of like having a limited set of resources and then having to meter those out and like being careful to like work with what you had, not draw too much because you didn't want to hit fatigue first, right? Like knowing what they have in their deck, knowing what you have in your deck and trying to outweigh that. And like Kil'jaeden just throws all that out because it's like now it's just turbo draw. Because I want to get to Kil'jaeden and have as empty of a library as I can, or empty of a deck as I can, before I play it, so that I lose as few cards as possible. And it's so grindy, and it takes like not that control mirrors didn't always take forever, but you feel it so much more, and it just kind of feels unsatisfying at the end compared to at least how the other control mirrors played. So I played like 2 games of that, and then I just went back to. I've been alternating between the Demon Hunter and the Paladin. I'm not really enjoying either of them. Whenever I got up to like Diamond 10 with the Demon Hunter. And then I just ran into every Protoss Mage. Like all of them.
That was me a couple of weeks ago.
It was literally like 3 in a row. And like Protoss Mage is like a 49% deck. I don't know why people are playing it. But the reason they're playing it is because it beats Demon Hunter, I guess. Because I haven't figured out how to beat that deck. And like I had one game where I just had a bad opening hand and I just conceded on like turn 4 because it's just like we could sit here for 20 minutes or I can just end this because it's going to be the same outcome. And that's when I started switching the Paladin. And then I had like another mixed result there. And I'm going to PAX East this weekend, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to play anyway. And then it's Mother's Day on Monday. I'm going because I'm not going on Sunday because, you know, I'm not an idiot. So So I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of time to play between now and the mini set, but I'm not. I think I'm probably just taking a break till the mini set because it's like it's playing these couple of decks, and I've gotten. I know those decks, they're fine. I don't really want to play them a lot more. I don't love a lot of the 50-50 matchups that are just in the meta because it's either rock, paper, scissors or it's literal mirrors. So, you know, it is what it is, but I think I'm very ready for any sort of a shakeup at this point, just given that the meta's consolidated so far down to like those 3 decks and then the Death Knight, which is just fine until you actually go into another Death Knight.
Same with Warlock. I've been seeing a lot of Warlocks, but it has the same kind of pattern as the Death Knight.
Well, at least the Warlock games end, right? Because you have Wheel of Death. It again ends in an unsatisfying way because it comes down to who draws Wheel of Death first. But at least that ends in a reasonable period. At least if it's going to end unsatisfying, at least it's ending unsatisfyingly and relatively quickly, as opposed to ending unsatisfyingly after half an hour. There's a big difference there.
Yes. I don't know that a solution to attrition is therefore the game just goes on forever. Like the point of fatigue is that it ends the game eventually.
Yeah.
Well, I have not been playing a ton besides I've been doing some coachings. I picked up some Menagerie Rainbow Death Knight after doing a coaching in that yesterday, and because the Paladin was a little hit or miss for me. The deck is really strong, but I feel like if I'm not really focused, then I feel like I miss playing and then I get frustrated. There was a couple games this morning that at least one that I really should have won, but I was tilted enough that I didn't go back and look at the replay and try to figure out how I should have won. I was like, I should go back and look at the replay. I can learn something from this. But instead, I was just kind of melodramatically like, what am I going to do with Hearthstone?
And luckily, our topic today is opening up that replay and dissecting it. No, it's not.
Just every turn. Yeah, so I switched over to the Menagerie Death Knight after my husband was like, maybe it's just the deck is not what you should be playing at the moment. So, and that can have the problem of you can just get pushed off the board and then it feels terrible and you have to know when to leave. But you can definitely have some blowout games, and there is some interest in, like, when do I throw out things, just tempo them out, like the Mosquito. When do I tempo it on one? When do I not? When do I tempo the Brittlebone Buccaneer? When do I not? That kind of decision. So that's been going pretty well. I've also been playing Arena because of the quests for the event. Kind of forces you to, and I don't really play Battlegrounds. So, and in Arena, you can have fun and do well if you get like Death Knight or Priest, and otherwise you're going to have a rough time for the most part, except for the one Druid I ran into that got Hamul. And then you can just pick nature spells after you get Hamul. It doesn't look nearly
it's a legendary, so it's your first pick, right?
So it's your first pick.
Know. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you won't get offered as many spells as you would put in an actual Imbue Druid deck, but that still worked out pretty well for them. I think that I faced them on the time when I had picked Priest, but got offered no Imbues in the whole draft. Just none.
That's just rude.
That didn't work out super well. It is rude. I tried to do like a Dragon Priest after I realized this is where we were going, but that isn't as effective. But just now I'm 4-1 so far in an Imbue Priest run. We'll see how that goes. My loss was the first game, which was an Imbue Priest mirror, where I couldn't clear a Selenic Drake on their side for like 4 turns or something. And all of the dragons they got like a Briar Spawn Drake and the 10/10 that does 10 damage at the end of the turn, and Malygos. And yeah, I was not winning that game. So sometimes the Imbue Priest mirrors do get a bit dumb because it's just who got the better roll on their hero power. But other times you can get enough of an advantage early enough that it's not just who got better rolls on the hero power. So, and then otherwise, I'm still playing some No Man's Sky. I got one of the top tier starships. There's like a 1% to 2%, 5% in like rare places chance that a ship that spawns is like the top class. So I finally found one that I could afford. And it is so ugly. I'm calling it the Bumblebee because it's like squat. It has feet that look like insect feet and this big bulbous black cockpit that looks like an insect like head or eyes, and it is bright yellow and black and orange. And it has these like giant cylinders off the side, but its stats say it's extremely maneuverable. So therefore also like an insect. I had made a mistake earlier where I had traded out my pretty good ship for a ship that had better firepower but worse maneuverability. And as my husband could have told me if he'd been talking to me, because he likes planes, this is a bad idea because it doesn't matter whether your guns are stronger if you cannot hit them because you cannot turn fast enough to ever have them in your sights, because they are just out turning you. So that didn't work out very well.
What
so
if
then
it's just guns everywhere, though?
Just
what if it's just a gun
guns?
on every, like a gun on every surface? Like, I think he's just not thinking big enough, honestly.
Guns all the way down.
Yeah. And then you call that ship the 360 no scope.
Oh, God.
This is a sci-fi game after all. So yeah, that and life stuff. We're getting toward the end of the semester, so there's a lot of panic as everyone's trying to finish. The school that I work at is individually paced, which is great for a lot of reasons. But then if a student has been needing more time for whatever reason, but doesn't want to go to summer school, they have a bit of a hard deadline at the end of the semester. So some students are like, oh dear, I really need to hurry up or we're not going to finish. I have a student who's finishing up Count of Monte Cristo, which is a great book for them. And it is a very fun book. And I'm blaming it for all of my melodrama around Hearthstone because it is a very melodramatic book. Like the Count is like, I'm going to save my old friend. But instead of just giving him a bunch of money now that he can use to save himself, I'm going to wait until the last possible second when everything's about to go wrong and then like sail a ship that replaces his ship that he lost in every particular up to the harbor. And also he will randomly find this enormous diamond all at the last possible minute that this could possibly happen, because he always goes for style points. That is what we like about him.
Maybe he would like the bumblebee.
He probably would. He would just bedeck it with jewels everywhere. His approach to getting himself into high society so that he can get his revenge. For those who are not familiar with this book, it's a revenge book. It's a 19th century French revenge story. Very long. This is an abridged version we're reading. Still very long. But he becomes incredibly rich. After being wrongfully imprisoned, he finds this huge treasure, and he just does like a shock and awe approach on talking about how rich he is so that people admire him and are scared of him at the same time. And I feel like that realistically would work. Like other rich people would be like, respect, and also I'm afraid of you, if you were just that ostentatious about it. If you can't be old money, you can be the most new money possible.
Yeah. I see it.
But that is my life and ladder. Not life on ladder, but life and ladder.
Well, yeah, not much of a life on ladder for me either. I was playing a bit of Arena because the questline stuff goes, some of it can only be done in Arena. So, yeah, working on that. I had a pretty good run as a Death Knight and a pretty good run as a mage. I think both were over. One was, the mage was 7 wins. I think the Death Knight was like 10 or something.
Nice.
And
that's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. I just playing Lies of P, then getting games ready for Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is, the current tabletop RPG system I'm very excited about. And waiting on the mini set, because I'm not actually as down on the meta as I feel like you are, Wicked, but I just am ready for change. Like I think the rogue is fun, but I'd just as soon do something else.
you just kind of get to a point, right, where you've just you've gotten everything you're going to get out of a meta and you're ready for something different, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right.
And I think that the fact that this is so compressed, we probably would have had a bigger balance change by now if it weren't for the mini set coming out next week, right?
Sure.
But because the expansion cycle is so compressed, then we haven't gotten the bigger balance change that does a bunch of buffs and stuff, because we're just getting the mini set. So that's where it kind of feels like you kind of get used to the cadence, and now it feels like it's been what? It's been almost 2 months that we've been with this meta, and we've had some, we had that initial set of balance changes, and then we really haven't had anything, and it's just kind of been those same decks for that long. So
I think there was a pretty long period of decks emerging every day. There was at least 3 weeks. And then a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, then the first balance change. And then a couple more weeks of just tons of new decks all the time. And a way maybe we got a little spoiled by that, because when it finally settled, it settled on fewer decks being really competitive. But there definitely was a period for a while where there was just lots of new stuff coming up, which was really fun. At this point, I think I've played a lot of the strongest decks, and I don't know why the Paladin isn't clicking more for me. It was clicking well for me. On paper, it's a deck I would really love. So I don't know.
I mean, when there's not that many decks in the format too, you run into a lot of mirrors, and it's easier to target those things. So not the Paladin's really targetable per se, but you get into those matchups with the rogues where the rogues can get ahead of you or whatever, and yeah, and you just kind of I think that's also because there's a lot of that rock paper scissorsy feel of the meta. A lot of the games feel like they're playing they're not predetermined per se, because it's never 70-30, but it feels like I know how this game's going to go, and maybe I get lucky and they draw poorly, but I kind of know what this is going to happen as soon as you queue into the game, unless it's a mirror, in which case it's a mirror. So
yeah,
but it's early. It's an early 4-set meta. We're going to get more cards, and presumably after that, at some point, we'll get some sort of a balance change to buff stuff that isn't working, and that'll help too. So I don't it's not an indictment of the game. It's just the game goes through periods like this.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some people in our server who are really, really enjoying this meta and really click with at least, one or more of the decks that are here, and more power to you. And I'm sure a lot of them will still be good, but yeah, I'm looking forward to a little bit of a mix up.
Yeah. Well, unless we have anything else for Life and Ladder, we've got a tiny bit of news. And then since we are in the mini set waiting room, we decided to do something a little different and open the Discord up to questions. So we are going to answer your questions after that. But first, just the tiniest bit of news in this hour of mini set waiting room-ness.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So really, all we have for you is a shop update, and it's a pretty small one, but it is a good one, because one of my favorite skins of all time, Sir Finley Murgleton, is now available for gold. It is $9.99 USD or 1,500 gold. It is well worth your 1,500 gold, especially because right now you will get use out of a Paladin portrait. So it is delightful. He shouts, "I said good day" when he attacks. It is fantastic. You really, if you don't have it, you should get it if you have the gold. Even if you don't have the gold, this is worth $10. This has my seal of approval, or my Murloc of approval, I suppose. You do get the Finley Murgleton car back as well. The Sir Finley Murgleton. He's dressed up like a Silverhand recruit. It's delightful. Just go get it. You will not be disappointed with your purchase.
Oh, I'll get the next one though.
Yeah. So this is the other big one, right? So I believe it was 2 years ago. I remember where I was when I saw it was announced, because because Maureen had gone on some trip to see her friend, and I was on Newbury Street with the kids when we're eating lunch when I saw this. And Study K, which is AFK, who is themed like Lo-Fi Girl.
Mm-hmm.
So she's sitting at a desk writing with a quill with a sandwich next to her, of course. Was announced as a Battlegrounds portrait, and I believe this is one of the rare non-Zyrella portraits where I was basically begging to make this a constructed portrait. And it is available, and it is available for gold. So for $6.99 USD or 1,000 gold, you can also have this portrait. I don't believe it has any unique voice lines or anything. I don't really know what the AFK voice lines sound like because I don't play AFK all that often. But I don't think they're particularly unique. But I mean, you don't play AFK that often anyway, so you probably won't even notice. And it's a really good portrait. So that is also available for you. So if you happen to have gold left, do remember to save gold for the mini set. It's, I believe, 2,000 gold usually. So do make sure that you're saving gold for the mini set. But if you have gold set beyond that, then go pick up both of these portraits. They're both very, very good. I definitely went immediately and bought the Study K, and that's when I was looking at the win rates for Protoss mages because I was hoping to actually get to use it. But nope, not doing that when Protoss mage is below 50%. So
just get ready for Elemental Mage.
Hey, I will look for excuses. I'm good. I will look for excuses to run this portrait. So.
Might not be this mini set, maybe after Ungoro, but
well, yeah, Ungoro will definitely be there. If there's not an Elemental Mage, I'll be shocked for sure.
Yeah, there'll at least be one. Whether it'll be playable, we'll find out. But there will be one. I am pretty confident.
Yes. All right, so that's news. That's it. We're in mini set waiting room mode. Yeah, so let's go see what you all have to ask us.
All right, so we asked in our Discord server what are questions that you all have for us, and you had a lot of really great questions. We will answer as many as we can here, with topics ranging from sort of Hearthstone in our lives to things that we think would be cool in the game to our favorites of various things, and then some other questions about gameplay, miscellaneous questions. So starting here with a question from Just a Guy about Hearthstone in our lives. If Hearthstone had never existed, what do you think would have filled the space in your lives over the last decade?
Well, I think it's pretty likely it would be Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I think that's my answer too. I think I was at a point where, like, I think if Magic Arena had come out around the same time, that's probably where I would have ended up also.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I was at a point where I wanted, so when I got into Hearthstone, it was right after my ADHD diagnosis. And I actually wrote something on this on my blog. God, this is 10 years ago. God almighty. And I was looking for that because I was like, where I was at like mentally at the time is that I was really having like a crisis of confidence in myself. The problem with living with undiagnosed ADHD for 30 some odd years at that point is that because you're so spiky and things that you can do today, you may not be able to do tomorrow, or you may not have been able to do yesterday. Like I wasn't really confident in what I was able to do. And like, I was successful at my job. Like I had a family, things were generally going well, but I didn't really believe that I was doing any of it because like I couldn't repeat it. And so I just kind of needed to feel like I was good at something, which is led me into this mania. But I don't have the reaction time to be able to be good at a lot of video games. Like I've tried fighting games and like first person shooters, and I'm terrible at all of them. Like even like I might have gotten into something like a League of Legends, but I probably would have been bad at that too. Because that was around the same time. But like this was something that I was able to be good at, right? And then see myself progressing. And that was something that I really needed at the time. And I was kind of at a point where I'd been out of Magic for long enough that I really did want to play another card game again, but I couldn't really justify the expense of it, given that, I had small kids at the time, and just, it wasn't the kind of thing where I was going to go and start buying booster boxes again. But, the investment that I was putting into Hearthstone, I mean, it was free to play for the first year that I played. And then after that, it was, okay, well, I'll spend $60 on this instead of like a AAA game that I would have spent the same amount of time on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that was. But yeah, I feel like I probably would have ended up eventually. I think by the time the Magic Arena came around, it would be Magic. It's pretty likely. I mean, it's, I'm getting into Commander now, right? But I'm not playing any 1v1 Magic aside from like the occasional like pre-released sealed limited event. But like, and even that was last time I did one of those, it was kind of a disaster, and I'm not really excited about doing another one. So I don't like waiting around to play a game of cards, and I ended up spending more time waiting than I did actually playing. And that's not it for me. Like, being able to just get a game whenever I want has kind of ruined me for that. Now, like, if I have to sit around and wait to, be queued up with somebody, and God forbid I get a buy or they don't show up, which is what happened back to back, then it's just not it,
Yeah, I was definitely playing a bunch of Magic when Hearthstone came out because I was in college. There was a Magic club at my college. Somehow we got to secure club funding to buy boxes of cards so we could draft as the Magic club.
That's a good scam if you can make it happen. Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it was pretty sweet. And I think I may have been living at the Theta Chi house when Hearthstone came out, and people were like, "Oh, it's this, it's cool. You can play on your computer." So, in times where you can't get a game of Magic, like, you can play Hearthstone. We played a lot of Commander in college. And it was really not until I moved to Philadelphia so like a couple of years later, because by that time I had finished my master's in art education. When we moved, I was like, well, I don't want to form a new group of, like, I don't know. I was intimidated by finding new people to play Magic with because there's a stereotype that is Magic players that I managed to mostly not super engage with for like my regular people that I played with. And I was just nervous about like trying to find a different kind of Magic player again, right? And so I played a lot more Hearthstone. And as a result of that, eventually I did want in-person folks. And back then we had firesides. And so I met some wonderful people through fireside gatherings in Philadelphia and got really into playing with those people, doing the local tournaments. In terms of local events, I was quite good. And then that eventually came to a small group of us that were more serious, like would practice together for big qualifiers. That's how I qualified for Copa America, and like flew out to Brazil to compete, ended up into WSOE, all that stuff. So the turning point was really moving to Philly. And gosh, if I moved to Philly and didn't have Hearthstone, I think it would have been Magic, but I really have no idea. That would have been sort of the most likely, but I mean, who knows really? It's because Arena was such a long way off at that point in terms of like when I just moved to Philly. So, it wasn't until like COVID or near COVID that Arena came out.
It was before that, because I remember being in a PAX before that, where I remembered like standing with Ray C at like, because they had like a big tournament. I think that was PAX 2019. It definitely wasn't 2020. because that was a very different PAX. I think it was 2019 when it came out.
Yeah.
Because I remember they did, because they switched to like doing all the tournaments on Arena for a while, and they were doing like a tournament from the PAX floor.
I like to think that I would not have gotten into Magic Online, which was like such an antiquated UI that I could not handle it. The way you could play online Magic before Magic Arena was just oof. Yeah, was not for me. Maybe it would have been board games, but I really don't know. Hearthstone was actually, no, it's very possible. I think Magic would have been the light side. If I may have turned to the dark side and just dove back into League of Legends.
Yeah.
Those were sort of my two updating games that maybe would have filled that void.
Yeah, I mean, Teamfight Tactics too, I would have fallen into probably at that point. Eventually, that would have taken a while too. I just looked it up, and it was official launch was September 26th of 2019. That was after a year of like open beta that Magic Arena came out. So it was like 2018 to 2019, and I think it was after that they came out on the Mac, and I was actually able to like play it, or the phone, one or the other, because I was locked out of it not having a PC until the end of 2019 when I bought the gaming PC for streaming. And that's when I was able to start playing Magic Arena.
But you joined Hearthstone more recently, right? So
yeah, well, I did play. I originally actually started in 2015. I remember it was, I think, BlackRock, and then TGT came out right around when I started playing.
Not that much more recently.
Yeah.
But I played a lot less seriously. I treated it as I treated kind of all games at that point, which is I would like flow in and out. So I would play a lot and then I would play less. And I was really not using it as a community very much. Like I would go on like Hearthstone occasionally to like net deck. I didn't really know
Hearthstone, yeah.
where to find stats. And I didn't listen to podcasts at that point. And so, although I should have, I had a really long commute in college because I was living at home and commuting across the Bay Area for a lot of it. But I listened to audiobooks instead. Anyway, so I used Hearthstone as sometimes a procrastination method that still made me feel like I was using my brain and accomplishing something that wasn't work. And I could hyper-focus ADHD style. So I remember, sitting in the library or the cafeteria at my college and just like tunneling in on Hearthstone would be a common place where I would play it. So I think at that point, if there hadn't been Hearthstone, it just would have been another game. It probably wouldn't have been a live service game. I kind of needed my friend who got me into Hearthstone to push me a bit to try a live service game facing actual opponents who weren't like my brother. So it probably would have been RPGs, or I would play things like FTL, like little strategy indie games. I really like turn-based stuff or real-time with pause. Like I would play Dragon Age Origins so slowly, but but very well, but so slowly. Even The Sims, I take so long to get through. Like I will play for many, many, many hours. And my Sims, I have aging on, but they never die because I never get there because I'm paused so often.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they just die before you get to do anything because you're taking so long.
No, the pause button. Pause. Everybody in the household do something. It's very ironic because I like won't let them do things like play video games for too long. I'm like, no, you have to be productive.
Oh, you're the worst mom. Okay.
I am the worst Sims mom. It's like, all right, your fun needs up. You're done. Unless they're like, in the Sims 4, video gaming is a skill. So it's like, okay, you can build the video gaming skill.
I've never played a Sims game.
I have not either.
I've never played one. I have no idea. Like, I don't even know if I would know what to do if you put it in front of me, to be honest.
It's not a very difficult game, but it takes a little while to get your footing. So new people will be like, my Sim is just not doing what I want and then dying. once you kind of learn what's going on, then there's so many exploits. It's hilarious. So you kind of have to have your own like house rules in your head so that it's not completely ridiculous, and then have whatever thing you're playing out. Or some people just like to build, or I'll have like little challenges in my that I'm going for, or like I'm going to build something, like I'm going to build a boarding school, which is not really a thing that you can do, but you can kind of make it work. So anyway, and that was just something I always played since I was a kid. I used to watch my mom play it when I was really little, back in original Sims 1 when I was like 7. And then I played Sims 2, I played Sims 3, I played Sims 4. It's just like a comfort game. At this point, I don't really need to think. It's like my game where I can feel like I'm doing something when I have like COVID, or my brain is just like otherwise not working, or I'm really stressed out. So it would have been stuff like that. And then for the intellectual challenge, more like RPGs or turn-based strategy, I quit Hearthstone in like 2018 because I was quitting everything that I was tunneling into a little too much with my ADHD at that point.
Were you diagnosed at that point or no?
I was diagnosed at that point, and I did have meds, but I would still turtle is how my mom would describe it. And I was also just having a hard time. That was the year that my father passed away. And so things were somewhat difficult. Actually, no, that was not the year he passed away. That was the year he got really sick. So that was actually harder in a way. Anyway, when I came back to Hearthstone, it was during COVID, because I was like, well, I'm sitting here a bunch anyway, so I guess it's not a problem if I get back into this game. And I eventually found the community in 2021. And that's when I had just been hanging out in like platinum gold with terrible decks this whole time, right? For like 3-4 years. So I finally found first Vicious Syndicate, then Coin Concede, and learned what good meta decks were. Also HS Replay. Learned more about what the actual, like, concepts of how to play are. Even like relatively simple things like what's your win condition? Tempo, which doesn't have a good definition, but is still a good concept. Stuff like this that I had kind of been figuring out, but didn't have an explicit knowledge of. So it's hard to really explicitly strategize about something you don't have explicit knowledge of. And so then it became partly a community and partly like a hobby and something I could really use to intellectually challenge myself. And at that point, it took the place of like a lot of different things. So partly I had kind of a writing workshop online community that fell apart for various reasons, and Coin Concede kind of filled that gap. That's when I got really active in the Coin Concede server. And I think if I hadn't had that, I would have needed some other intellectual hobby. This was really, maybe it would have been more D&D or board games. I think I haven't had anything quite like it. I have played a little bit of Magic, but I don't think I would have been as likely to get as into Magic as I got into Hearthstone. So, yeah, it would have to be filled with multiple things.
So you never listened to like the Appa Hat Bauticus days?
No. The first Coin Concedes that I listened to was right before Bauticus left.
Wow.
Wow.
That is so weird for me to think of.
Like, you've only been listening since I've been on the show, which is also weird to me.
Yes, I had just discovered Off Curve.
Okay. Yeah, that guy's okay.
And decided that I enjoyed it. And then it was like, good news and bad news. Good news, he's going on your favorite show. Bad news, you're not getting that show anymore. But I think it was worth the trade-off.
I think so.
I think it worked out. Yeah, it worked out okay.
I think it worked out well.
I'm not talking to myself in my car anymore unless I'm stuck behind somebody who's really slow. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if the intent was for us to all do like, how have you spent the last 10 years in Hearthstone? But,
well,
bonus. Bonus answer.
Bonus answer. All right. Yeah, these first two I think are a bit longer, and then some of the later ones, hopefully we can go a little quicker. But our next question is from JT Snow, and he has they have a somewhat specific question that we had a lot of talk in the Discord too, and I kind of narrowed down to: how do you talk about Hearthstone with people in your life who don't play Hearthstone? So, for example, are there like nicknames for playing Hearthstone, or for things in Hearthstone that you use with them? How many people like know that you play the game, and how do you describe the game? I find it especially funny to describe the game to people who don't play games. They have like, I'll say like, oh, have you heard of Magic? And if they have, great. It's Magic on the computer. Sort of. Good enough. And if they haven't heard of Magic, we're in for a ride here. Yeah, I mean, I don't use terms for it. I mean, for some people, it'll just be like the game I play.
Yeah, my game.
Like,
yeah.
For like my mom's partner, I've told him the name of the game. He cannot remember the name of the game. He has no gaming background at all. His kids didn't play games. No idea. So it's just the game I play. And, or like my mother-in-law. The game Magesa plays. And I'm pretty open about it with people. I mean, even like in my grad school class and class discussions, it came up a couple times. One time in the assistive technology class, I was talking about the assistive tech mod that is really cool for Hearthstone. I talked about like working memory and strategy, of course, and just the community. It does help to be able to say like, this isn't just a video game that I play, but if this is a community, a hobby, and it does help to be able to say, and my podcast. And people are like, oh, you have a podcast. Every once in a while, it turns out that they do know Hearthstone, and that's very fun. I may have told this story before, but I had a student who, we were talking about games. He was in high school, and I said that I like to play games, and he said, oh, what kind of games? I said, oh, my main game is Hearthstone, expecting to have to explain it. He goes, oh, yeah, my dad plays Hearthstone.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
And apparently his dad was really into Hearthstone, because then we had like this student ferried a conversation back and forth between me and his dad for like the next month. Be like, my dad wants to know what your favorite deck is. I said, Naga Priest. Comes back. My dad hates Naga Priest. It's a terrible deck. My dad wants to know what your rank is. At that point, I actually was in top 1K for like the first time ever. So I was like 770. He comes back. My dad says that's a really good rank. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, goodness.
And then finally, I was looking forward to meeting this person in the teacher-parent conferences. But the student came and said, my dad wanted to say he's really sad he can't come to the teacher-parent conference because he wanted to talk about Hearthstone with you. So that would have been fun. But mostly it's just, it's interesting having to... I find that people are interested, but they don't quite understand if they don't know games.
Yeah. My favorite was, I forget if I was going into or out of Israel. I probably must have been out of at some kind of checkpoint, right? And just getting asked what I was doing in Brazil, or like what like maybe I got asked like coming into Brazil and also then coming back from that trip, like back to Israel, because I flew to both of my biggest tournaments in 2018 out of Israel. We were doing Rachel's semester there for rabbinical school. Anyway, yeah, and I said what I was doing, and they're like, "Oh, kind of like poker," and I'm like, yeah, man, sure. Just like poker. This is not worth it.
Yeah. Whatever ends this conversation the quickest, sure.
Yeah, sometimes I'll be like, and it feels pretentious to say it's kind of like chess, because then it feels like chess has such a reputation, right? But it is similar-ish in that it's a strategy game versus one person at a time. There's a lot more randomness in it, of course. But sometimes I'll be like, it's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like poker, because there is cards and some chance and some kind of trying to read what your opponent's going to do. And people are either that's good enough, they're not interested, or they're like my mom's partner, who is like, I want to hear more about it. So I tell him more about it. And then he looks at me and he goes, I'm really sorry. I don't understand at all. Maybe you can show me at some point, but not right now because my brain is full.
I used to talk to Rachel about it more now I think we're much more limited in terms of like the time we have to chat with each other. It's like the hour after we put Leah to bed and before Rachel goes to sleep, assuming we're not like watching Andor or something. Like we chat some when she gets home and other times, but it really is a lot less time.
You have a lot less energy and a lot less, and you're just doing more things when you have a small kid in the house.
So I talk about, the thing that is most exciting to me, which very occasionally these days is Hearthstone, but usually has been sort of D&D stuff or political stuff. A lot of my books have been nonfiction, so it'll be either Strong Towns or I'm reading Ezra Klein's Abundance. One of my favorite journalists, Anand Giridharadas, who wrote Winners Take All and Persuaders. So I often talk about those books. But I feel like with sort of my family broadly and people who don't know, the first thing I say is it's a card game with characters from World of Warcraft. Because people usually have heard of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that is a good thing to add in, because then people usually know that that's a thing.
And I'm just not going to explain a card game, right?
Like, no, I mean, you're not. Like
card games are varied and super diverse at this point. So, maybe I'll say like, kind of like Magic the Gathering, but with characters from World of Warcraft. That's sort of the TLDR. When I started casting, got interesting because then I still don't always feel great when people ask, what do you do, about saying, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So sometimes I will say, oh, I do broadcast work for like esports. And, maybe they'll ask what game and I'll say, oh, Hearthstone. But yeah, it's funny when, we think about how many people are in this community, how many people are in this hobby, like hearing the numbers of how many people play the game, right?
Yeah, millions of people.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people in the world.
Yeah.
And so this game, the millions of people play and that thousands of people watch Hearthstone esports and so have seen me cast, like the odds of me running into those people are not very high.
Yeah.
Except in spaces surrounding the hobby or sort of nerd spaces. Yeah. So most of the time it's like, if I have to discuss it, I try and just put things in sort of more generalized terms or layperson. Sometimes I'll try and make a comparison and just, I'll try to reduce any sort of Hearthstone terminology and do a like translation in my head of like, okay, how do I sort of make this analogy or talk about this thing in a way that's like either more standard gaming, if it's a gaming person, or more just like generalized to like convey the concept without having to use any gaming terminology at all. But it's tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes even just like, people will be like, well, what does that mean? It's like, okay, well, you can make it sound impressive pretty easily. You can be like, well, it's like a card game, but instead of a regular deck of cards, there are thousands of different cards that all do something different. So you have 30 different cards. And, so some of them will like deal damage because you're trying to deal more damage to the opponent before they deal it to you. And some of them will counter the opponent's cards. And that'll also get people to be like, wow, this is complicated. So I don't now need to understand all of it.
Yeah.
My mom watched me cast one time and I was like, you really don't have to do that. But she did. And she was like, yeah, I don't know what's happening, but I do feel like you do a good job of like conveying what people might be thinking. Right. So that, she at least has some sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've not been really shy about it at work. Pre-pandemic, when I would go to lunch with folks in the office, like I would be playing at the table at lunch. And it was like, just because that was like the one time for me to turn my brain off. This was before I knew I was autistic, and now post pandemic, I like leave the building for lunch and just go eat by myself because I need it,
Yeah.
you know, and my coworkers are lovely people. Don't get me wrong. Like I really adore all of them, but I just needed to, I'm talking to people all day for my job. Right. And I just need to not talk to people for an hour. And so I just go and do that now, but I would be playing that then. And I did have one developer who reported to me who also played Hearthstone, and he found my stream, which is also an interesting, that's an interesting conversation. You know, he friended me on BattleNet, and then, you know, he found my stream, and you know, it's like none of this stuff is a secret, right? Like I will tell my boss, I'm at the point where I will tell my boss, like, yeah, I'm doing a staycation because the game I play is coming out with a new set, and I'm going to do that rather than be distracted. And it's as good of a reason as any to take a week off.
It's nice that you have a boss that is understanding of.
I mean, I've worked for my boss for as long as I've been there, which is nearly 20 years. So it's like,
yeah, one would hope that you can have that kind of relationship after 20 years. Goodness.
yeah, there's not like, she knows I'm weird. It's fine. Like, I'm not worried about it. And there's like a couple other people who I've, you know, brought it up to, but it's like, I'm not hiding it or whatever, but it's just something that doesn't come up. Like it's one of those things that, like, thank God I haven't had to do this in a while, but every so often there's like a big kickoff meeting where they have everybody introduce themselves with like a fun fact about themselves. And it's like, that's not the environment that I really want to, you know, that's not where we want to start. Right. Like, I'm already like, all my interests are already weird being autistic, right? Like, I don't need to start that way. Like, at least I can pass for neurotypical for a little while, you know, but it's not something that I hide or whatever. Like, you know, I use the Hearthstone creator backpack fairly often. I mean, certainly when I go to the game store, it's where I keep all my stuff. And, you know, if I'm traveling, I'll take that around with me and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's like, I mean, I've been doing this stuff for 10 years. We've been doing this podcast, you know, other stuff like that. And other than BlizzCon, it's never really come up, but, you know, every so often somebody would find my stream. It's like, oh, hi. It was the one time that was really weird was when one of my kids' friends, a couple of my kids' friends found my stream.
I remember
and just
this.
like, yeah, I just started like spamming the chat, and then like, we're like, what is happening right now? Like, why? Oh, we're friends with so-and-so. Like, okay, great. Thanks. What would you like us to do right now? Because I'm streaming and I'm not entertaining 12-year-olds. And
oh dear.
When we went to BlizzCon, so after I had guested on the show, and then Wicked and Edel asked me whether I wanted to be a host, and I said yes, and I was so happy about it. And then like the next thing was, so BlizzCon, can you come this year? I was like, yes, I will make it work. So I went to my boss and I just said, I just need this one day off work. I think I took the Thursday and the Monday. And because I was asking like 6 months in advance, they were like, yeah, sure. And just didn't ask me why. So they probably assumed it's probably a wedding or something. Like, I just didn't say why all the way through going. And then I got back and my coworker's like, oh, how was your trip? Where did you go? And at that point I was like, well, I have a podcast about this game. And so mostly they were like, all right, cool. And the kids find it either cool or weird or both that an adult plays video games. Partly depending on whether their parents play video games and they've seen an adult play video games.
Makes sense.
And then one of my coworkers was really into Magic the Gathering, and then has become increasingly disappointed as he realized he can't really talk to me about Magic because I don't really understand most of what he's saying about. Like, I can play Magic, I don't know the meta, I don't know the cards. So he'll, you know, especially I've played a little bit of Commander recently, like a very, very tiny bit, and that's not what he plays. He plays the more, I don't even know what all the formats are, but the original one, 1v1, 60 cards, that one.
Standard, modern, yeah, one of those. Probably.
One of those.
Yeah.
He's probably, if he found this podcast, he'd be disappointed that I don't actually know which one. Sorry, Michael. I don't know which one. But it is yeah, it's interesting when to bring it up and when not, and how much to explain, or just be like, well, you're being polite. I'm asking questions, but I don't want you to like trip my info dumping mode too hard.
Yeah. It's basically a function of how comfortable I am with somebody, right? If that I'll disclose it. Like generally it's not something that I hide. It's not something I go out of my way to like keep from people, but it's like, I know how that conversation goes. Like it's with any of my special interests, I know how those conversations go. And I generally just don't want to start that road unless it's somebody who I'm already comfortable with. So
yeah, my brother and my close friends and my mom, and certainly my husband actually played some in order to know what's going on enough to talk to me about it, because I was going to talk to him about it anyway. But I'll sometimes tell them a funny story like, man, I found a new deck that I really, really like, but there's this really annoying deck called the cat deck. No one listening to this it's going to be surprised when the cat deck is Blood Decay or similar to Blood Decay. And I'll be like, the cat deck just plays with its food and it never kills you and it's the worst thing. So I'll talk about it in that kind of terms sometimes with people who know me well and have patience for game talk, as my mom calls it.
One of these days I'm going to build you an actual cat deck for Commander and just
I feel like it really mostly comes up, because people always want to know what you do, which I think we need to get away from as like an opening topic, just like tying people's identities to their jobs. But at any rate, it's a thing. And so there's kind of this game of like assess the person and then respond with either, okay, well, if they value home stuff, then okay, I can say, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom with Leah, housewife, I cook, do that stuff. Or I say, oh, I do broadcast work. Or if I need to just kind of detach entirely from questions, oh, I do contract work. Which is not false.
I have trouble even just explaining what my day job is, let alone what this stuff is. So who knows,
Right. There's this great part of that philosophy book I mentioned before where he talks about how he introduces himself to people. And it's like, well, if they're, what is it? He doesn't say he's a philosopher usually. It's like, if I'm talking to a regular person, then I'm a lawyer. If I'm talking to a lawyer, then I'm a law professor. If I'm talking to a law professor, then I'm a philosopher. Something like that. It's this elaborate shell game to give him an edge in every conversation.
Yeah, you do have to kind of assess, if you're going to say something a little adjacent to what you do, then you need to figure out whether they actually know that. When I for a long time, I had a job which, in some ways, like I had friends who were very, had these high-powered careers, and so I felt kind of awkward about it. But my job sounded great at parties because, I was working at a makerspace with teens and adults on the autism spectrum, and people are always like, that's cool. My insert family member here has autism, and could get into some very interesting conversations that way. But it sounded very cool, and it is unfortunate that like it shouldn't matter, but it's having an answer to that kind of question can feel like it matters more than it should, I guess.
Yeah.
But we move on to things that would be cool in the game. So we have a question from Joltsy. What formats would you like to play, not necessarily see in the game as a mode? For example, a format with curated expansion selections different for each class. My thought here was to steal one from something that Hat said at some point. I don't know if it was on the show or in the Discord or what, but he said it would be really cool to have a format, and they will never do this because technically it would be a nightmare, but it would be really cool to have a format where you could like pick the patch you want to build in. So, and then you face people who've picked different patches. So we can finally say, would Day 1 Demon Hunter hold up against a modern meta deck or whatever,
Yeah.
I gotta imagine it would.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
It probably would, though you never know with the way that they've power crept lately. But
yeah,
I mean, I've got a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is, I mean, I think we probably need some sort of an equivalent of modern that's between like wild and standard. I don't know what that is. It probably needs to start after Stormwind. I'll say that much, because we did that with Twist, starting with that year with Stormwind, and that whole meta was Stormwind. So it probably needs to start after Stormwind, but some equivalent of like whatever modern would be. That's like less than wild, but more than standard, just to have because like wild is 11 years worth of cards, and there's got to be somewhere between there and a 2-year rotation. But also, I don't know, it feels like we should be able to get there, but I think the longer answer is that I would love to have a place to play that is truly casual. And what I mean by that is that one of the things that I have found as from playing Commander over the past year is that I really enjoy brewing decks, right? I really enjoy the process of building and refining decks. However, the only place in Hearthstone where you can actually take those decks is someplace with a ranked ladder. And that changes the way that you build. So like when I'm building a Commander deck, right? I don't actually care if I win, which is very different than if you're building for 1v1 ranked, right? Because if you're building for 1v1 ranked, then you need to be thinking about what's in the meta, what other people are going to be doing, and you need to have like a solid plan, and then you're not necessarily caring about like what the experience is for anybody else or for yourself, honestly. Like there's plenty of times in standard ranked where I'll just play a deck that I hate because it's the best deck. Like now, for instance. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Like I'm just not loving these decks, but that's what I have to play in order to climb. And like there is a part of me that really enjoys brewing decks, but the problem with brewing decks, and God bless people like Funky Monkey, honestly, who can do this, because I don't have the mental fortitude to do it. Or even like the stuff that you're doing, Edel, like that you can kind of take something and play it in ranked and then get it to work, or get it to work well enough and enjoy the process, because I just lose with those things. And then I have to kind of compromise the vision that I had for the deck to account for the kinds of things that other people are going to be doing. And then that kind of ruins it for me. Right. Whereas when I'm playing in Commander, like there's some of that, but not really. Like there's no meta. And I don't care if I win or lose, as long as my deck got to do what it's supposed to do. Right. And then I can actually I don't keep track of wins and losses, whatever. I just care, did I have fun with this thing? And that's a very different experience, but it's something that you can't really do. I don't know if you even can do it in 1v1, honestly, because Magic Arena has a format like this, but it ends up being where it's 1v1 Commander, and it's terrible because it is like that. And it's just like, you run a million removal spells because you need to remove the person's commander as soon as it hits the board, or else you just die. But like the kind of the concept of like maybe it's a multiplayer format, maybe it's not, but just like where there isn't any sort of a ranked system, and it's kind of a shared understanding that we're doing the thing for the experience of doing it. But that's just hard to do online. I think, I don't even know if they could do it. I'm certainly not a game designer that can figure out a way to do it, but it feels like Duels was kind of the closest that we got to this.
We do have the casual mode.
Yeah, but that's still like, the problem is that casual, there's like two kinds of casual, right? There's casual, which is this, and then there's casual, which is like unranked, which is I think is how more people use it generally, which is that I have a meta deck that I don't know how to play, and I'm going to learn how to play it here before I start risking ranks on it, which is valid, but then it doesn't give you quite the same experience. I don't know how you get there, honestly. And I don't even know if you should, but I do feel like there's a lot of upsides of having an all digital card game. The one thing that you lose is that there's no way to just make your own format easily.
No,
right?
Kitchen table Hearthstone.
Exactly. Right. Like there's not like Commander wasn't something that was like developed by Richard Garfield or whatever. That was just something that some judges came up with one day to kill time in between, in between matches or whatever. And there's a bunch of formats like that like even like a pauper format or anything like that, where you could use the cards that are in your collection for something other than 1v1 ranked, because that, and the other thing that does, right, is that opens up the space where not every card needs to be good in standard to have value, which is kind of the other place that we are now, because we've lost duels, we've lost twist, if we ever really had it. Wild is a thing, but wild is even more restrictive than standard in terms of what cards you're allowed to use, right? So like if this card isn't going to hit in standard, it's almost certainly not going to hit in wild unless it's breaking something. So there's not really any place to go to take these cards and then feel like you're able to have this janky experience with them, in another format, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I almost feel like that's what Twist was kind of sort of supposed to be, but
it was trying to be. Yeah. But again, you have to put a ranked ladder on it. And this is the downside, right? Like this is the reality. If you're going to get enough people to queue the mode, and Twist didn't even do that much, but like if you're going to have a chance, then you need to put a ranked ladder behind it. But as soon as you put a ranked ladder behind it, then you're incentivizing people to go spiky on it. Right. And there's no place for like a Timmy to be able to brew.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of embraced my inner Timmy over the past year, and there's not a great place to be a Timmy in Hearthstone right now.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I really sort of second what you said, Megasa, in terms of a pick. Maybe a more implementable version of that would be like a twist where it's just all the past decks that were brought to World Championships.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
and you can queue one, right? So there's no building element, but you've got World Championship decks that
Tavern Brawl was great.
Really early days and some that are more recent. Yeah, the Tavern Brawl, you didn't get to pick, right? It was just you.
They assigned one to you. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I really enjoy that stuff. And I would love to see even that Tavern Brawl come back. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Or maybe it's kind of like Arena, you get offered like 2 or 3 decks so that, because I could see there'd be one deck that just wins the meta. So, but it would be really fun to have that as like a limited format. To get to play those decks in that kind of environment.
Yeah. Or even like that twist. Like what would be cool is if they did that twist where every day was a different meta, like every day, like added an expansion, except that if they also did the rotations.
Yeah.
Right. So that you actually got to get the experience of like, cause like it was really good for the first few days because we got a really good nostalgia hit. But then after that, it just became different versions of those same decks with, more cards in them. It became closer to wild than it was to like, how standard was it back in the day. Like if you were able to do that, like with the rotations, with maybe not necessarily with the balance changes per se, but at least like with rotating out the older cards as the newer cards came in and be able to get like some of that nostalgia back. But because like, there's no way to do that, right? Like there's no, like you can't do that in wild. But again, this is the problem, is that you can't just like decide you're going to do that, right? Because unless you have other people who are agreeing to do that, and that's hard to do online as opposed to just like, oh, we're going to sit in a game store and we're going to make up a format,
Oh, wait. I know what my actual pick is. I want to be able to draft.
Oh, yeah. That would be good too. Yeah. Yeah. Or even just like, we're picking 5 more cards and we get to cut 5, right? Like that would be a good start. Even, I don't know what the arena revamp's going to be, but hopefully there's no deck, like at least if there's like some kind of deck building as part of arena, that would be good. Because there's just not a deck building component right now, aside from like the picks that you get. Like you're building a deck, but like I've told the story before of like there was one draft where I was drafting with Maureen and she convinced me to take anything can happen and pick one, and I'm like, well, what if we don't get Murlocs? She's like, we'll get Murlocs. We didn't get Murlocs, and it would have been nice if we would went 5 more picks, and I'm like, okay, well, we didn't get any Murlocs. I'm going to cut anything, right? But instead, I had this 10 mana card that did literally nothing. I think maybe we got one Murloc at summon to 2/1, like 10 mana summon to 2/1, great deal. And like being able to do that, I think would make for an interesting experience. And maybe that's what they have in mind for the arena revamp. We'll find out in a couple months or actually, I think it's like next month when they do that.
Yeah, just having that leeway would be great.
All right, We have a question from Contig. Do you have a specific card idea or expansion theme you think would be really cool? Like, what would you want to see if you were a designer? I had an idea for an expansion theme. I don't know that they would actually do this, but something kind of like Festival, but it's movies. So every class is a different genre of movie, and then the neutral is like the crew and the audience and like the awards shows and stuff like that. So you have like Death Knight is obviously horror, right? Warlock maybe is like vampires. Mage is fantasy. Paladin could be like cop movies. Rogue, I can't quite decide between like. So I had been thinking like heist or spy caper or something like that. My husband was like, no, it's rom-com, which would be hilarious. Hunter could be like sports movie maybe, or actually maybe Warrior is sports movie and Hunter is westerns or something like that. Like Druid is like Disney or Pixar animation style. Demon Hunter could be science fiction because they're, Outland, whatever, science fiction. Priest is like art house movies that some people love and other people are like, can they end already? Thank you. This is going on.
I thought it was going to be like Left Behind and VeggieTales, but okay.
Could be that too. I couldn't figure out what Shaman should be, but
that's like one of those movies where they're like stranded, like Alive, where they're stranded in the woods, right? Where they're stranded in nature.
Yeah, man versus nature type of movie. Yeah.
Like Yellow Jackets type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would just be, since I don't play World of Warcraft, I did play like a little World of Warcraft way back when, but since I'm not super up on the lore, I can enjoy learning the lore through Hearthstone, but I also like the silly themes that take real life stuff and play with it. So,
but you know why that would probably be a terrible idea though, is because who would have to be the key legendary for that set? Barnes. You have to do it, right?
It'd be a different effect. It'd be fine.
No, but it doesn't matter, right? It's still Barnes. Like Mad at Arms right now is just getting his dusting finger ready even at the thought of it. So
what about you again?
I honestly, I don't know. I'm not a designer. I don't know Warcraft lore. I just appreciate the stuff when it comes in. Like I'm happy with whatever they're doing. I think I like the sillier stuff better, but I honestly, they teased this like, the cooking competition set on the show like a while back. And I still want that. Like, I don't know what we would have to do to make it happen, but that would be fantastic.
All different kinds of cuisine from different parts of that would be super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I generally applied for like final design because I'm much more into like finding balance and stuff than I am in terms of coming up with the new wacky ideas. So, yeah, I've sort of drifted from that I don't know, headspace
into D&D creativity headspace.
Yeah, for sure.
Leave that to the professionals, Yeah.
There are so often really good flavor cards, and I appreciate, sometimes I will enter Vicious Syndicate's card competition that they do, not because I don't need the, pre-order bundle. If I ever did win it, I would give it away again. But just because it's kind of fun to come up with cards, but it's also really hard to come up with cards, and you're coming up with one card.
Yeah.
So, Contig also asked, what is a favorite voice line or flavor text? And I would say right now, Overzealous Healer, you will never die, is a favorite of mine. Also, there's, of course, many great ones from Naga Mage.
Oh, well, and I may not have had an answer for the card idea thing, but the second of Contig's questions in the things that would be cool, you were to add an unusual class to the game.
Sorry, I skipped ahead. If you were to add an unusual class to the card. Yes.
Yeah, D&D or other RPG classes. So there's no way this would work, but in Shadow of the Weird Wizard, they have a different take on evocation magic. It is all about the way stuff is said. So the novice level spells are syllables. The expert level spells are, I forget what the expert level ones were, but and then the master level spells are recitations. But it's all like, since there's separate schools of magic for all the different elements, unlike in D&D, evocation itself is just these sort of words of power, like speaking things. And so I want not your World of Warcraft evoker, but like that evoker from Shadow of the Weird Wizard, where it's like painful utterance and healing syllable. It's a very very unique kind of take. I don't know. It probably doesn't work because it's like, well, it's okay when you've only got to do 18 spells and four talents, but once you have to, design something for every set, you're going to run out of things. But I just thought that was such a cool thing.
I might say, I mean, this is not unusual, but Bard. I feel like you could have like
Sure.
song cards like combine, like you can combine like verse cards and chorus cards, and somehow they affect each other if you like played this kind of card last turn or something like that. Or maybe so that you don't have draw order problems as much, like you can choose when you play it, is this a verse or a chorus? And so it has different versions or something like that. You'd have to make that different than choose one. So maybe it interacts with the other cards like that. I think you could do a lot of fun stuff with Bard, and there's so much flavor that can go with it as well. And some of the flavor is stuff, like you might not want to go on the charm mind control too much, because that's a thing that people always hated when Priest did it. But I think there's just a lot of flavor to explore with it, and I love Bards. I mean, I played a Bard all the way through Baldur's Gate 3 and very much enjoyed it. So they're kind of jack of all trades too. They could have weapons, but not primarily be a weapon class. Could incorporate some of that word magic maybe into Bards. They don't have Bards in World of Warcraft, so you could, so they wouldn't do it, but you could be freer to make the magic however you want it to be. Wicked, do you have a class idea or?
No, I don't play RPGs as much as you two do, so I don't. I'm trying to think of like what's going on in Final Fantasy VI, because they got some interesting stuff going on in there. But even then, it's it's all kind of, it all feels like it's kind of covered. Like maybe other than Monk, which is kind of the obvious one that they're probably gonna do at some point. But like even then, it's like, well, what are you doing that's different? And I don't even know. Like, I don't know if there's a way to make it really differentiated from what we're already doing and keep the other classes doing what they're doing too. So
that can be part of the risk. Like if it's hard to design new cards, it's really hard to design new classes.
Right.
And then it just adds to what you're designing forevermore.
And I'm still bitter that Death Knight's getting all the good Control Priest cards. So,
All right. Now we have favorites, quick hits. Sorry, I jumped the gun before. We have a question from Glacier. What was your favorite legendary card now, and when you started playing Hearthstone? And what card in general, or like non-legendary card, have you had the most fun with?
All right. Well, the first legendary I opened was Malagos. And I tried to make that work. It did eventually. I think I tried to play Malagos Rogue when it was a thing right before the first rotation. Amazing. Just because I had a Malagos and I wanted to make it work. And I didn't. I did not, because I was as bad at Rogue then as I am now. But that was a thing I tried to make work. But the card that I've had the most fun with, and I really wish they would throw back into core at some point, is Void Ripper. So Void Ripper is neutral. Oh, what are the stats on it? It's a neutral minion.
3/3. 3 mana 3/3.
Yeah, it's a 3 mana 3/3. And it says Battlecry, swap the attack and health of all other minions. And I had this beautiful priest deck in Kobolds and Catacombs. This was in the heyday of Q Block, where you would use things like pint-sized potion to reduce the attack to 0 and then flip everything. Or you would use, I forget what was the minion that would steal a minion if it was attack 2 or less.
Cabal Shadow Priest.
Yeah, Cabal Shadow Priest.
I loved that so much.
So I would take the carnivorous cubes, I would reduce them down to 2 attack, and then I would steal them with Cabal Shadow Priest. And or I would flip everything to kill it. Or sometimes I had Ysera in that deck and I would just flip that to deal like 12 damage to face occasionally. And that was, I just found there were a lot of really interesting uses for that card, and they've never put it back into core. And I really wonder why, because it feels like there's just so much interesting things you can do with that card.
There's only been like 2 or 3 years of core, right?
I know, and that's 2 or 3 opportunities for them to bring my spooky boy back, and they haven't. My spooky son.
Probably my early favorite legendary would have been like original Alex Straza. Because I tried to set up like inner fire combos. Like you would like Alex them, and then I would try to like get something to stick so I could inner fire with oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the name of it? Divine something.
Divine Spirit?
Yeah. Divine Spirit inner fire. I played way too much of that, including really bad versions of it. You know, early on, I was playing the thing where I would just brew decks and then I would just stay in gold. But I didn't mind because I was engaging with it in a different way. It wasn't a opportunity to get better. It was an opportunity to just brew wacky stuff. But I would get frustrated when I was losing over and over and over again because I was trying too hard to make something work that really, really was just never going to work. I later, when I came back to the game in 2020, I think this card is called the Nameless. There was a card.
Oh, the Nameless one. Oh, I love the Nameless one. Yeah, I love Nameless one.
So at that time, Rattlegore was a big thing, and I really liked facing Control Warriors with my Galakron Priest. And they would play, I would be like, please play your Rattlegore. You know you want to play your Rattlegore. Play your Rattlegore. So that when they played their Rattlegore, I would Nameless one it, and then I have a Rattlegore. And after it dies, it's an 8/8.
Gross.
Not a 3/3.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. And so often, because of the ranks I was playing at, people didn't realize that's how it would work. So they kill it, and then it's an 8/8, and then they concede.
I think Nameless one could actually maybe salvage Control Priest at this point. Just by virtue of giving it a silence. That might be enough, right? Like, anyway.
That on some of the starships. That was a great card. And then, of course, I had a ton of fun with Naga Priest. I had a ton of fun with the Undead Shadow Priest from like late Alterac. There was like a 3-week period when nobody but a thread in our Discord server, not even like the main Discord server, but you had to be like invited into the thread. It wasn't technically a secret, but we'd just be like, oh, you're talking about Shadow Priest. Come to us.
We tried to protect general population from the Shadow Priest cult. Yes.
Yes. And we would say things like the legendary that would steal something for a turn. If you silence Najek Hexen.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What no one knew unless they were in the secret thread or faced us was if you steal Najek Hexen, and then we had the Whispers of the Deep silence and do its attack randomly to all enemies. This was just such a synergistic deck. I loved it because we would have things, we had that with the 5/4 Reborn Rager that was like Battlecry Die, but if you like silence it, and then you deal 5 damage to everything, and it was great. But if you stole something with Najek Hexen and then you silenced what it stole, it wouldn't give it back. You didn't have to silence the Najek. You could silence what it stole. But no one ever knew that, so they'd be waiting for their thing to come back, and then it wouldn't. Actually, it wasn't at the end of the turn. It was you had to kill the Najek. So they would kill the Najek, and their thing wouldn't come back.
Right.
Because the enchantment on the thing was gone that said it belonged to the other person. And so, so it was just yours now, which was very fun. That whole deck, it was aggressive, but it had a little bit of a plan B. It had a lot of different synergies. and it never got super popular, so it never got nerfed. It took a few weeks before there was even enough of a sample size for it to show up in Vicious Syndicate, and then people to start playing the good version. I think I give a lot of credit to Hat for that deck. I don't know who originated it, but that's where I found it from, and I think he did a lot of the refining of it, and then we kind of worked on it as a group. It also had the 4/3 Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero.
Oh, yeah.
I want that one. I want that card.
I'm trying to think of, like, when I started playing Hearthstone, I was an arena main for a long time. So in terms of, like, legendaries back then, I'm not sure I could really name one. I did really like Thaurissan when it came out. Certainly one that is very old at this point, but was quite a bit later, is Prince Kaliseth, one of my favorite cards, because you just had all these versions. Like, yes, there was Rogue, but I also used it in this weird Hemet combo hunter, quest hunter that I made, and a few other things. I enjoyed the, like, mega heavy tempo deck, and also Kaliseth. Favorite legendary card now? I mean, I don't get to use it too much at the moment, but Shutterblock.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Shutterblock.
That is a really fun card.
Non-legendary, I've had the most fun with. That's tough for me because, like, I'm always trying so much stuff. I feel like Hat's answer would easily be Shadow Step.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, but you're not degenerate like he is, so, you know.
You're right. So Ice Block.
Yeah. You know, I didn't give you a legendary, and I think that my favorite legendary is probably original Xyrella, like 4 mana Xyrella, like who would
that was
do
a great
damage
card.
to the opponent's minions equal to amount of health you've healed that turn. Like, that's a really cool effect that we haven't really had in a while, and I would like that too. That or Sister Svalna was fun for a while too. I liked Svalna Priest. It was a dumb deck, but I enjoyed it.
Okay, I don't know if this is like the one I've had the most fun with, but it definitely sticks out, and that is Risky Skipper and or Anima Extractor. Like, I forget if those were initially in at the same time.
I think so. Crispy Skipper was part of that. Yeah.
Well, but I'm talking about, like, I loved the Risky Skipper in Rage Warrior that was around the time of Day 1 Demon Hunter, and I forget if Anima Extractor came out around then or if that was later, and so there was something else.
I think they waited until after that rotated out.
But there was something that was in at the same time as Risky Skipper that you capitalized on, and I just forget how the Enrage deck back then worked. Not important, but so I guess I'll just say Risky Skipper because I know that was there. You know, you had Armor Smith for sure. That was how you beat the Demon Hunters, and then there were other things that you killed. There was the Mercenary, right? That gave you a copy of a damage minion. So I guess there were a bunch of spells they would use for buffs. So yeah, Risky Skipper was great.
Anima Extractor, I'll add that to my list of cards. Loved that card. Really fun. Once I learned, I'd say my early experience with Enrage Warrior was kind of like my early experience with Rogue in this meta, which is to say I was like, I feel like I should like this more than I do, but I can't figure it out. But I got there, so I should have more faith with the Rogue. Because I really did get there with the Fire and Rage, and then I
mean, the difference is that you're pure of heart, which is why you're not able to grok the Rogue. That's the difference.
I feel like I was able to get enough from myself and from people in the Discord to give advice, but then putting it together on ladder, I don't know. All right. From someone whose name I cannot pronounce, but we can see it on the screen, written in kanji.
I'm out of practice.
What's the most and least favorite Hearthstone expansion for you? If specific to a patch period, your favorite meta? For me, I have a hard time with remembering the details of my favorite metas, but I remember decks that I liked during, like, it's decks that stand out in my memory. Most Stormwind, and I know this is controversial, I get why people didn't like Stormwind. A lot of people didn't like Stormwind. Some people loved Stormwind. I understand the criticisms of quest lines. I loved Stormwind. I loved, like, the Shaman quest. I loved the Shadow Priest with pre-nerf Elucia that we had. She should have been nerfed. It was good to nerf her, but I got Legend for the first time with that deck, like, hours before she got nerfed.
That started at 2 mana for like a week. They printed that at 2 mana and they thought that was okay. Like,
so not quite original pre-nerf Elucia, but before she got totally destroyed. And I loved Quest Mage early on until it got really aggravating, until other people were playing it. But, like, day one, I was playing Quest Mage and people didn't know that you don't play minions against it. So I enjoyed Stormwind a lot. I enjoyed Hearts of Alterac a lot, I think. Not just the Priest. I'm having trouble remembering what some of the other decks were that I played then, but Nathria I enjoyed because I had Naga Priest. I think if I hadn't had Naga Priest, I wouldn't have loved that meta. It got really grindy at times, but I had Naga Priest and no one else was playing it, and it was great. So, at least favorite Hearthstone expansion, I think, again, it'd be colored by whether I just didn't click with the deck or whether things were going on in real life. So I can't think of an expansion that stands out where, like, I didn't like the expansion.
Yeah. I mean, that was, for me, that was probably like Rastakon's Rumble.
Rastakhan.
Yeah.
Witchwood was exciting, Gen and Baku, because they were new, but there wasn't a lot there besides Gen and Baku.
That whole year, right? Like, that whole year was pretty whatever. Like, the year of Gen and Baku, I really didn't like. It got very old very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably not a coincidence that was the year that I dipped.
Yeah. I want to say I enjoyed Skullomance a lot, but I cannot tell you what deck I was playing back then.
I remember a period of being like, Alec Dawson middle sets, they're the best.
Yeah. Like, I remember, like, playing some, like, I do remember playing some Ozaki Mage, like, before it actually got good. Back when one day that it was everywhere.
That meta was evolving so fast.
Yeah. But yeah, I couldn't actually tell you, like, what I liked out of that set. I mean, I liked a lot of the cards out of that set. I don't remember, like, what decks I was playing other than, like, that Muzaki Mage and 2 mana Elucia for that week. I definitely enjoyed quite a bit because we played it in Control back then, like gentlemen, and that was real good at 2 mana. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I had thought, this is an interesting card for Control. I, like, was just starting to get more back into the game, and so I wasn't brave enough to play it in a Control deck.
Yeah.
But I thought this is really interesting in this. And then when it showed up in an aggro deck, because we had, what was her name? The 1/3 Void something, who was great. Everything deals 1 more damage to heroes.
Oh.
Void Attendant.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Loved that card too. But it did make Elucia completely ridiculous because it was just skip your turn because I have no cards in hand and I'll play your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, I think I did enjoy Soul Demon Hunter. That was a fun deck back then. Not really my kind of deck, but it wasn't really aggressive. It was more like One Punch Man more than anything else. Because you're just trying to make your attack as high as it could go. But yeah, there were a lot of good cards in that set.
When was the Demon Hunter that had the Naga, the 2/4 Naga that would attack every time that you played something or, like, played a spell?
Oh, yeah.
And I think you also ran the quest just to draw and get some middle discounts. Like, you didn't care about the reward.
Stheno.
Yeah, Lady Stheno. What was she?
She was a legendary 3 mana 2/4.
No, I know, but, like, what set was she from?
Oh, she was from Sunken City.
Oh,
But
yeah, that
this
makes
deck
sense.
that I'm
Naga.
thinking of was later. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I did enjoy Sunken City too, because that gave me my other very wet sun, Blackwater Behemoth.
Blackwater Behemoth. The Colossals were awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a little. By the time they rotated, it was like we have seen so much of some of them, like Krakatoa in every rogue deck. But they were really cool design. I did enjoy the Colossals.
So again, there's just so much that it's hard to know. Oh, what was my absolute?
They also start to like roll into each other after a while.
Right. But I remember liking Barons even though people didn't, because the aggressive warrior was good. It lost to control priest, but that was kind of the only thing it lost
So
to.
was the incredibly not aggressive priest. So, you know.
Yeah. So I remember liking that. I remember liking Scholomance a whole lot when it came out. I remember Saviors of Oldham had a period. But yeah, maybe March of the Lich King, just because Death Knight is just so much like my kind of class. We're introducing the rune system and having all these incentives to do like the different rune combinations. I remember doing a lot of experimentation then.
Yeah, every episode was like in Life and Ladder. What has Elvice been experimenting with this week? And then people would be like, "Where's the deck list?"
Man, that was 2022. Okay,
Yeah.
gotta move on.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have from Contig, what is a favorite voice line or flavor text? And I had said, Overzealous Healer, "You will never die," is my current favorite.
I don't know them. I play with the game sound off.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm no fun.
I think, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but like Alucia's shouting, "Share your thoughts with the class now." Just like it got me every single time. And it was dramatic enough because that card coming down on the board was dramatic. And also just like how that fit with like how her being a teacher and then like what the effect was doing. It was just like, it was pitch perfect.
That is very good. Yeah. We have from Scoob D, favorite deck you enjoyed playing that other people either hated facing or didn't like playing, or both. So I have two answers for this question. For favorite deck I enjoyed playing that other people didn't know about was that Purple Priest and then Naga Priest. I distinctly remember a conversation on the Vicious Syndicate podcast, Hat was still a host, where Zacho said, "And Naga Priest is tier 1, but no one cares." And Hat said, "Well, I care. I love that deck." And Zacho goes, "Like I said, no one cares." And then deck that I played that other people really hated was, and they should have, besides the pre-nerf Alucia, was also that poison Scabs rogue that also had something else that made it so that you couldn't target it. It like gave it, it had like 3 different ways to give itself stealth, and it was a weapon rogue. And it was also had a little bit of burgle in there just because, and it had the nulls.
Just to make sure everybody was equally pissed off. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have like a turn 2 null if you got the right draw, and it was just absurd. And it was there for like 2 weeks because it was Christmas break.
Oh,
right.
God, the null decks. I hated all of the null decks, all the Meister decks. Oh, yeah.
That was that was tough.
And I didn't have I also remember in that meta when I would play other classes, because I didn't have a ton of golden hero powers for things other than priest. People would like mull as if I was Meister Rogue when I was playing something else because they had the thing where your hero power wouldn't be gold.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed playing it. I actually enjoyed the mirror, but it should have been nerfed well before it was.
Yeah.
Probably Wicked, yours and mine are like same vein, low-hanging fruit, right? Like,
I mean, mine was going to be Baron's Priest, right? Like that's,
I 100% thought you were going to say Baron's Control Priest.
Yeah.
For me, it's Blood Decay, right?
Yeah.
Like, People constantly rant and rave against how much they hate Blood Decay, and I'm just like, but it feels nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having so many arguments back then about how people were, well, Priest has removal for everything. It's like, no, it has removal for very specific things, and if you actually played the deck, you would know what those are and how to play around them. But nobody wants to because it's Baron's Priest. Like,
yeah, well, and because they hate it because they don't like that style of play, right? And so you're getting in the way of how they like to play.
They hate us because they ain't us, right? Like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't want to have to think about removal. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're making me think about removal.
Yeah. Because it felt like when you're on the other side of it, it felt like it had infinite removal, and it really didn't. And it had removal for very specific things. But if you don't want to play the deck and learn it, and I don't blame people for not wanting to play the deck and learn it, because it's not everybody's cup of tea. But if you don't know what it's capable of and what it's not, then it just felt like it had answers for everything, and you had no chance. Sometimes that was true, but not all the time.
We have some gameplay questions here that actually could be good for future Evergreen episodes, so we will hold on to those. Yeah. But Hat had a very important question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, it's a spicy canine.
Oh, God.
We're done here.
I mean, I live 20 minutes away from where they decided that a taco is a sandwich, so I think everything is actually a sandwich. That's just my Massachusetts pride showing. So even things that don't involve bread, they're still sandwiches in their hearts if they want to be. I respect their aspirations to become sandwiches.
If you can pick it up, it's a sandwich.
Yes.
Well, even if it's pizza, it's an open face sandwich, right? Like if it just you can pick it up. I
mean, everything's a sandwich that otherwise it's just a sandwich that hasn't met bread yet,
Hoagie, a sub.
Yeah.
Yeah, if a sub is a sandwich, then a hot dog is a sandwich.
Yeah. I mean, pasta is just a sandwich that's inside out, really, when you think about it.
If you have penne, then you can sometimes things get inside the penne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get canceled, we probably should wrap it up at this point.
Hot dog is the best deal at Costco. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That is what it is. Yeah. People are like, do you know what's in it? And I'm like, yeah, it's delicious. And it's costs nothing.
I just there's just that one episode of The Simpsons where Lisa becomes a vegetarian and they offer her a lamb chop. And she's like, well, what's different than that lamb that that kissed me? Like, well, do you want it? Then she just they start offering her different things. And then she just sees the different animals falling apart into becoming into the chicken nuggets, and then it's a hot dog, and there's a raccoon and a mongoose and a skunk, and it's all getting rolled into the hot dog.
Oh man, one day we will just grow all our meats in labs.
Yeah,
we'll be fine.
Probably not that far off. Well, now we are, but eventually.
Be a minute
when we get back to doing science again.
All right. Well, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at coinconcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Quick shout out to Chardo Costello, best guess there, NY Kiwi and Continuity, who all subbed during the show. But then Coin Concedes, similar vein, I will coin concede to everyone who submitted questions so that we have content for you this week, because we were scratching the bottom of the barrel. It's really, they threw us off with the whole, okay, here's all the cards, and now wait an extra week before they actually release. So thank you all for your questions.
I'm going to coin concede to Hat because or did I steal one? Did I steal this from you? I think I did.
We can have a joint coin concede.
Joint one. Well, I think we can all coin concede to Hat because it's his second anniversary at Blizzard and his 39th anniversary on the planet. So,
woo-hoo.
All right.
Yes. He's an A+ top tier human, even if he baits us with hot dog related questions.
Just stirring up trouble.
Yeah.
It was the first question.
Stirring it up like hot dog water, you know?
I don't want to.
I don't know what that means either.
We're keeping it family friendly, Wicked.
That is family friendly. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I just don't know what it means.
What is more family friendly than going to a hot dog vendor and getting some hot dogs that are being boiled, right?
I guess.
All right. Well, that is also my coin concede. Yes, both to Hat, and thank you everyone who offered questions, including Hat, whose hot dog question was the very first question in the server.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Well, you know, he's asking the questions that people really do want the answers to. So anyway, that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and enjoy the mini set. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now.
I concede.
Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.